Alright, so what's all of this about? I really need to let go of Fallout. Once and for all. This community has confused hope with hype. One too many times. For it to be good for my health. Bethesda has already done this once. When they announced The Elder Scrolls 6, only seeming to have done that to prop up their company for Microsoft. We're dealing with another case of the indirect approach. But I cannot possibly let go just yet. When I have this burning vision inside my head. And the only way I can relieve this pressure in my mind is by carving the dream out of my brain with this video. Then I'll finally be free. Blame Warlocracy if you have to for giving me the go-ahead. I hope it's not too pretentious if I also try to share with you all a draft for Fallout I've been chewing over for some time. Coming from a place of honesty, the reality is I possess keys to a house I could never hope to live in. There's no way I will ever have the opportunity in my life to make a project like this happen. I just wasn't made for this. But you guys sure might be. I don't know. Maybe someone out there just needs that big push to get started. Are you looking to make a mod for Fallout, but don't have the necessary blueprints? Heck, maybe you're even part of a mainline Fallout project, and your supervisor is breathing down your neck for results. Well, here I am. In fact, I beg of you, take this from me. I'll probably be dead in a ditch before I manage to achieve a fraction of what you can within that time. I'm entering this draft into the public domain until someone comes along and claims it for themselves.
Take it! Oh.
So let's not waste any more time. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Fallout is a cruel world, but not unreasonable. The year is 2255. Our story begins with the tragedy of Vault 3. It was during that year that the massacre took place, but it turns out not all was lost. For those wondering, Motorunner is in his 40s when the courier encounters him in 2281. Having grown restless from the inaction of the committee, Michael Robinson volunteers to lead the search party to find the delayed trading caravan. Finding them slaughtered and robbed, Michael and the search team rushes back to the vault, only to witness the same there. Traumatized by what they saw, the band decides to abandon the Mojave and get as far away as possible from this tragedy. After much traveling, what was left of the band eventually settles in Denver. Finding some semblance of peace here, Michael meets a woman from the Hangdog tribe and settles down in 2258. You are their child. You only remember a little of your father, as he died from a disease when you were still young. To this day, all you can recall from your father is his distaste for the world. But misfortune would continue for you, as soon Caesar's legion came knocking on the doors of Denver. Your mother's tribe fought well, teaching you much, but eventually her life was claimed in the war. By the time 2274 rolls around, victory seems certain for the Legion. Those who are not heavily attached to Denver flee north. You are only 16 years old when you flee with a small group of refugees. The refugees find solace in Cheyenne under the protection of the Brotherhood steel from Fallout tactics. With several decades having passed, the Midwest chapter is almost unrecognizable from its roots. They have abandoned much of their technology as they try their best to stay under the radar in Wyoming. During the last few decades, a major conflict arose between them and a new faction known as the Alloy Rats. They have lost most of their holdings to this faction and now only possess one remaining base. You learn from your new tutors that the Alloy Rats are zealous scavengers made up of the rabble that live in the local wasteland. They worship a machine deity which freely grants them knowledge, teaching them how to dismantle and disarm any old world tech. According to the punks, those who serve the deity well and feed it enough scraps will earn their way to paradise. The Alloy Rat punks are known for being demented, treating their pursuit of scraps as a sport rather than a matter of life and death. All of this will be expanded upon in a DLC taking place in Wisconsin, where you would experience a story similar to the island of Dr. Moreau. Going back to the player character, the game's narrator would refer to you by the title Relict, but on your journey, the people around you will colloquially call you the Harbinger. It is 2288 when the game truly begins. You are around 30 years old. One of the items you possess in your starter inventory is a journal, which you can read to discover all the information about your past. The only other item you carry is a working Kodak R9000 with limited film. And this is the map of the region. This game has 5 playable factions, with one of them being a semi-player faction. I'll explain all the annotations on it soon enough. Some time ago, you became an avid reader of the Wasteland Survival Guide, which made its way all the way to Cheyenne. Being inspired by the chipper energy of Moira Brown, you decide to set out to prove your father wrong. Wanting to contribute to the effort, your goal is to create an addendum for the book that you hope will reach Moira one day. Believing that the book is missing a concluding statement, you decide to discover something that could serve as the foundation. Hearing stories about a place called the Four Grandfathers, you decide to go and document it. What you are searching for is Mount Rushmore. You are aware that the Black Hills are a unique survival zone, similar to that of the Divide, which serves you well, giving you something extra to write about. To reach the Black Hills, however, you will need the help of the Tour Company, the first playable faction of the game. They descend from the Irish immigrants who settled along the Union Pacific Railroad and now have a vast network across Wyoming. Taking a page out of the book, they embody the tycoon mentality of the railroad companies of old. Desiring to own the monopoly on tourism, they have a militant branch that serves as a way of strong-arming any competition. Being rather short on money, you enter their services on a debt. They help you travel up Interstate 25, as you can see here, before switching to Interstate 90. This is the only way to enter the Black Hills, for reasons I will get into later. The tour company has a general idea of the Black Hills and the factions located there. Seeing the region as inhospitable, they don't think there is much worth in tourism here just yet, but that is quickly changing because of the player. Their last major settlement was in Sundance, and now you travel alone with a guide the rest of the way towards Rapid City. Having explained your goal to the tour company, your debt to them is to give them the first copy once you finish mapping out the region. The game opens in the ruined settlement of Somerset, South Dakota. The companion who is traveling with you is a crook, having swindled you out of all the money you had, under the threat of abandonment. He also carries a Pip-Boy with him, the one you will soon own. By the requirements of your bargain, you are to rendezvous with one of their camps located at Four Corners, so that the commandos located there can be debriefed. However, the slim path leading to the Four Corners has been cut off by a nesting modified Deathclaw, and now the commandos there can't enter the Black Hills. This edge right here is inaccessible, but this small strip here, that is where you can enter. Even worse, your guide gets killed by a horde of ghouls as you navigate through Rapid City, only barely being rescued by one of the factions. You can either pick up the Pip-Boy yourself from the severed arm of your guide, or your savior will pick it up for you. One of the deciding elements of the game would be choosing whether to keep working for the tour company or not. To do this and join the faction, you will need to defeat the Deathclaw and allow the commandos to relocate to Newcastle. If you neglect this and pass a certain checkpoint, the commandos residing at Four Corners will kill the Deathclaw on their own, but not without important casualties. This will make the faction your enemy. The tour company commandos will patrol the region, serving as a difficult random encounter for you to face. The game's starter hub would be located in Rockerville, known in the game as Rocketville because of the crashed hull of a rocket located in the middle of the settlement. I'd say it should resemble the rockets the Bright Brotherhood operated in New Vegas. This is where you were taken after being rescued from Rapid City. And once you arrive, the locals get access to a map from your former guide, starting the main quest. The driving conflict of the game would be the entrance to a munitions storage. Pre-war, there was a bunker located near Rockford, but due to a nearby nuclear strike, the main entrance was buried. However, the bunker has a deep underground tunnel system leading to a newly discovered backdoor entrance in Hisega. But to access this new entrance, several clearance keys are required, which are scattered across the Black Hills. As the game progresses, keys are picked up by each faction, requiring you to either take them by force or negotiate for them. The reason everybody is fighting to enter the bunker is the rumor of a gek stored inside. Even the tour company wishes to possess it, as it would give them massive leverage. Now to explain the history of the region. China aimed several of their missiles around the area north of Rapid City, where American missile silos were located. With the response system failing, not enough American missiles were launched before the Chinese ones hit first, causing a cascading chain reaction. This massive explosion triggered major earthquakes within the region. To add insult to injury, the carefully managed Bear Butte volcano, which is still active in this universe, erupted thanks to the earthquakes, pouring lava into the Black Hills and beyond. As you can see in this example, the lava flow followed Route 85, leading into Wyoming and settling in the Thunder Basin. This completely reshaped the terrain for miles and destroyed many settlements, even burying some vaults. These buried vaults could also be explored in a DLC. The lava that mixed with the radioactive destruction determined a lot of how nature was shaped in the future. This is why most of the terrain on the west side of the Black Hills is inaccessible. Even if you can traverse the Thunder Basin, nothing grows for miles, and the radioactive obsidian desert will kill most crossing it. Now the enclosed region of the Black Hills is known as Black Pitch, cutting off most who reside inside from the west. A single nuke was aimed at Rapid City, but its guidance system failed, missing the city by a few miles. It instead landed in the Black Hills, causing the earth to crack open. This crack in the earth allowed the lava to flow in a single line before it spread out. Much of the rock was upturned in the Black Hills when the nuke struck, and the avalanche caused by the shockwave knocked Mount Rushmore off its foundation and buried it. After the local vegetation was disturbed, new fungal mutations began to grow, blending with the old to create something new. Three of the factions that have settled in the Black Hills are descended from Vault 40, located where the Black Hills Ordnance Depot is in our world. This Vault 40 is located just outside of the game's map, as I don't think it's important for the story for us to explore it. Instead, I find it more interesting if the locals are the ones who explain to you the vault, so that you can piece it together in your mind. Vault 40 was a partial control vault, where the Grey Initiative was conducted. Wanting to discover if they could create a perfect worker class using culture as its glue, they brought three distinctive groups into the vault. The vault consisted of the Sioux, the Norwegian Dakotans, and other homogeneous Scandinavians, and the Hudderites. The vault is structured like an assembly line, and the vault residents were tasked with producing a stockpile of Rad-X and other medicines for the future. There was an overseer class that oversaw the other three groups. The overseer elites were tasked with gradually combining the cultures of the three groups into one, with the main foundation being the worship of the state. This would be done generation by generation, with the intent of creating a culture that could always absorb any new culture it came across and make it serve the state. The initiative was going well until around 2220. What the Overseer class and Voltec did not foresee was the dilemma of language. As the years went on, the three groups created work songs that were passed on to the next generation to remember key things about each culture. But the new generation that emerged around 2220 began to question the meanings of the songs, which had been partially lost by this time. With the overseers refusing to provide context, seeing the evil of the vault, there was a massive uprising. The overseer class was killed, and the three groups emerged into the wasteland. However, due to the initiative, the three groups drifted apart in an attempt to preserve their culture. Music remained the binding agent of the three factions, even to this day. Having clarified some things about their culture in the local ruins, the Lakota Sioux returned to claim the Black Hills after everybody else deemed it unrecoverable. This came at a cost, however, as the toxic region killed many before they were able to adapt. The Lakota is the weakest faction in terms of raw manpower because of this. The Lakota were the ones who rescued you from Rapid City, and they are the ones who use Rocketville as their base camp. They have learned much from the new Black Hills and are the only reliable scouts and foragers in the area. The game would attempt to move Fallout into a survival genre. With the Black Hills making up more than 70% of the map, you would have to learn how to navigate them. The amount of human structures you can find would be minimal, in favor of a more traversable terrain, similar to that of the Honest Hearts map. You would have to maintain a special diet, depending on what you do and where you go. The Black Hills have poisonous regions, whose effects could be permanent on the player if they're not careful. To deter the effects, you would need to store up nutrients in your body, acquired from foraging and crafting. A unique element of the game would be the map having an open border. If you walk beyond this border, the game will determine that you wish to leave, and an ending slideshow would play. Depending on how much you did, the game would recount that in the ending before saying you abandoned your cause. Of course, there would be creatures for you to confront in the fungal woods, but each would behave like a mini-boss. We want to adhere to the Deathclaw philosophy from Fallout 3. Each creature needs to have telegraphed attacks that, if you miss, will deal massive damage. The creatures each have an Achilles heel, with the rest of their body being too well armored. Better yet, expanding upon the Animal Friend perk, some of the creatures can even be tamed beyond just serving as a pacifier. Here is a list of 5 creatures as an example that you would encounter and how they behave.
The local elk would be suffering from a version of the fibroma disease. Their mutative antlers have turned into basket nests surrounding their heads. The disease has also made them rather sensitive, being very in tune with their surroundings. To take this animal down without being trampled would require a high stealth check. The elk would be able to sense a sniper scope and would bob and weave towards your location. The mountain lions have learned to thrive in abandoned ruins and caverns. To enter such a location would require you to learn how to bait the cat out of its den, or be very good with melee. These cats enter into a feral state the more damage they take, rushing towards the player in a suicidal charge. They will cling to the player and tear through their armor until both of them are dead. Stunning the creature with your melee weapon before taking it out would be vital. Local rattlesnakes have become enlarged snakes that burrow beneath the ground. They shoot out from the soil and attack their victims from behind. To take out a rattlesnake, you would have to keep watch for cues on the ground. The ridge of the snake's head would be visible on the surface, and only a well-timed power strike or properly timed explosive charges would take them out. A large avian creature sleeps on the peaks of trees, blending in with the fungus. When the player gets near, they rapidly swoop down and deal slashing damage. Their hitbox is very small, and the only proper way to take them out is with fire. With only flares being a common incendiary in the area, you would need to score a perfect hit as they swoop down, watching them as they light up. And finally, you have the armadillo gecko. Being well armored, the gecko charges the player head down, knocking them down once they connect. Most of your bullets would ricochet off its armor in blinding sparks. To stop the charge of the gecko, you would have to be in a blocking stance. But hold the stance too long, and the gecko would lunge and pull your weapon from your arms. But the lunge would also expose the gecko's neck, allowing for a killing blow to be dealt.
Now, let's briefly go over the other 4 playable factions. You have the Brethren, who are descendants of the Hudderites. The strongest faction in the game, they currently own all the major local resources. Their capital is in Hot Springs, and they have been in a constant struggle with the Norwegian Dakotans. Their main resource hubs are in Dewey and Burdock. A major event that will happen later in the game is the return of Caesar's Legion. No longer being known as that, the Legion has split 23 ways after the events of the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. A lot of the events transpiring in the Legion mimic the events of the Daidoki Wars. One of these splinter factions has fled to the Black Hills and will enter the service of the Brethren as mercenaries. Who knows, maybe this faction can bring ballistic shields to the series. If you wish, you can take revenge for your mother and stage a Teutoburg event, wiping out the Legion. The Freemen are what remains of the Scandinavians from the Vault. They used to live in Hermosa before the Brethren laid siege to it and razed it to the ground. To remain safe from their rival, they now reside in Custer. Not being familiar enough with the region and the lack of a nearby agriculture, the Freemen survive by raiding the local factions and then trading with the rest. They have rediscovered the Frolitzlev lifestyle and are the second best scouting faction. They used to own Fairburn and Buffalo Gap before it was taken from them, and you can help them reclaim it. The last faction is a plot twist faction. The region around Rapid City is known for being infested with ghouls. But the player can discover that the feral ghouls are under the control of the Five Sons, a group of ghoul mystics. The game would leave it intentionally vague if the ghouls actually have any spiritual powers, but a lot would be implied. These 5 ghouls should use Set from Fallout 1 as a template. Their belief comes from a combination of the Aztec 5 cycles and the Yuga cycle. In their belief, humanity needs to evolve into its next natural stage, the ghoul. Once each human on the planet is a ghoul, the Nauli-Oli cycle can end and a better age can begin. So their mission is to irradiate the world and allow the cycle to pass. The requirements of joining this faction would be turning yourself into a ghoul. You also have the Lakota, who live all around inside the Black Hills. If you dedicate yourself to this faction, you can eventually assist them in rebuilding Hill City and making it into a stronghold. A major event that occurs during your scavenging and chronicling is the discovery of a local museum. Maybe it would be one of these ruins over here that hold the vital secret. Inside these ruins, you would discover the history of the Treaty of Fort Laramie, along with other darker histories like chattel slavery in Texas. If you decide to disclose this information to the Lakota, you are abandoning your pursuit as an author. You can then help them place explosives on Mount Rushmore and destroy it. This is, however, a foregone conclusion, as now the other factions see you as too much of a threat, forcing the Lakota to wipe them all out to survive. There is another route you can take, which takes you on a quest to rewrite a constitution with a new breed of founding fathers. And if you really pull it off, the Vault factions can stand shoulder to shoulder at Hill City, while Marty Robbins' Ballad of the Alamo plays in the background, standing together against a horde of ghouls coming your way. As a way to redeem themselves and being inspired by your valor, the Legion mercenaries will sacrifice themselves, holding off the Five Sons, giving you time to fortify Hill City. To fix some of the lore issues from Bethesda, I would add in a little cheeky side quest that would retcon Fallout 4, 76, and the Amazon TV show. It would go something like this.
And we're back with another thrilling broadcast of the Perpetual Junkyard, brought to you by the mighty Toadster. Tune in this time as the evil American Enclave strikes again, ready to face the noble Brotherhood of Steel. Meanwhile, the great Maximus is faced with the dilemma of a swarm of Deathclaws standing in his way. Will the sole survivor be able to stop their son from launching an army of robots? How did the ghoul end up all the way in Appalachia? Who will the nuke strike next? Only time will tell.
On your Pip-Boy, you can tune into this little local broadcast aimed at entertaining the younger generations of the Wasteland. In the episodic radio show, all the key events from the 3 Fallout projects would transpire, implying they were all made up by the broadcaster. The East Coast is actually doing quite well from what you can hear, and the Enclave has entered myth, along with the dwindling Brotherhood of Steel. However, as you continue to listen, you will start to notice a lot of continuity issues. Deciding to track down the broadcast, you'll come across the man responsible. His name is Liam, spelled with an E. Asking him about the broadcast, he tells you how consistency in a story doesn't matter because the audience is too stupid anyway, and they're all too busy building shacks to be able to tell the difference. And don't tell me this is taking it too far or is too personal. Since when has that stopped modern Fallout from trampling over the license? At least this way, the retcon would serve a good purpose. Listen, I don't want another Game of Thrones scenario, and right now, the fate of Fallout is attached to the success of the Amazon show. And if somehow Microsoft is in the room with us now, please recognize the difference between gaming audiences and TV audiences. You guys love satire, right? Well, here it is. You've got a golden goose here, Obsidian.
Come on, Jimmy, you gotta have something.
Sorry, dude. There's nothing I can do, muscle man.
Jimmy, come on, Jimmy. You know you owe me.
Now let's wrap this up with a through line. What would the main theme of the game be? I think it would attempt to depict the struggle of humanity with time. Time is something that erodes everything, even ideals. And when ideals erode, people repeat the mistakes they have already learned. After great hardships conclude, the survivors often try to imbue lessons to their descendants. But to make those lessons have power, emotion is used as the main ingredient. But as time goes on, people forget how to translate emotions, which leaves only empty words. There is just one more thing. I know the gaming industry is big and scary. There are so many expectations you have to consider when making a product. If you don't, you'll be relegated to my position, where all you can do is dream thereafter. But you can't stall something forever either, or else you just end up going around and ending up in the same predicament. Wouldn't you prefer to have some more breathing room before you're forced to stare down the barrel? How about I just tell you a fable instead, dear viewer, to get my point across? Perhaps it'll give you the motivation you need. I shall take you to an age where one great city covers the land, coast to coast, leaving those trapped inside to cast stones into the ocean. So it was during this age that a man named Aster took it upon himself to craft a mighty vessel to sail the cloudy seas. Aster was always a visionary, daring to dream of far beyond lands where others could dream as much as he. Long have there been rumors of a land full of abundance, hidden somewhere beneath the fog. Although others have sailed the seas, none possess the vessel necessary to cut through it. Aster would often speak to his peers about what he foresaw, but his words were quick to paint him as a fool amongst his people. But Aster was not easily dissuaded, and so he began to craft his vessel for all to witness. He would assemble the frame of his ship like a spider would weave its web. And the day he raised the skeleton into the sky was the day he carved his name out with its bones into the clouds. All those who looked above could see his name looking down upon them, and soon a crowd flocked around his vessel in hopes of seeing the master at his work. It brought great joy to Aster to see his vision finally realized, as the crowd cheered him ever so onward. And soon Aster found that he had grown accustomed to the joy the crowd gave him, fearing a world where he could not have it. Yet Aster was always a dreamer first and a pragmatist second, and soon he found he could not outrun time. The crowd was left to ponder, and in this wonder they began to weave tall tales in the shadows the vessel cast. And the shadows soon turned against Aster, clouding his once clear resolve. He could hear the crowd whisper, spreading rumors of a vessel he could never possibly create. So Aster traded labor for theater, where the shadows could finally dance to his tune. The land Aster once dreamed about had been shrouded by the shadow he gave function. But that had long left his mind. For every new sunrise, Aster would always remain the master, as the crowd fell under the spell of his vessel. But time was not amused by the trickery Aster played, and soon it would send its own emissary in the form of a child. Its mother would bring them one day to gaze upon the vessel, as they had done for many twilights. But the child could not see the wonder the crowd had been bewitched by, only seeing an ugly wreck and a lunatic who danced on its deck.